was filled with a lot of nice people and wanted to call it home, settle down. And over a period of time, worked his way through in agriculture, farming, timber, actually even mining for a while for gravel. And through the land that he owned, and it has been passed down through multiple generations. I think it got louder, is that better? Okay. So, Billy and Tricia's family from day one have been very involved in the community and building the community and seeing it change many times. They were the owners of the general store. They ran the post office. Billy's mother ran the post office until they had to close it because it didn't have a bathroom. Because they live literally right on the other side of this gravel drive. That old post office was preserved and brought down to this property next to their horse barn. They happen to own a piece of property that's very well located at Southwest Corner of Hwy 64 and 196. And it was zoned 3 decades ago. So Fayette County didn't have any zoning whatsoever. They did a comprehensive rezoning of the entire county basically at one time. Before that, you could do what you wanted to, where you wanted to. You could build a business where you wanted to. You could put in a car lot where you wanted to, whatever it may be. And then they said, we want to designate areas for growth. We want to designate areas where commercial will be. We want to designate where our communities are going to grow and what they're going to look like. And they set in a set of subdivision regulations and zoning ordinances. About the same time or a little bit thereafter, many of the municipalities did the same thing. This was originally a part of the community of Hickory Withe. And Mayor Harrington was doing everything that he possibly could to come out and annex the area, and legally could, under the zoning laws at that time. And many of the landowners, the long landowners that had been here for some time, fought that. They wanted to try to create a town, and the only reason they were wanting to do it was basically protect themselves at the end of the day and self-govern themselves. That turned out to be what was called the Tiny Town Law. And it ultimately went by the wayside because there was an apartment complex north of Jackson that incorporated as a town as well. But you can't pass a law that benefit one area and not benefit the entire state. So ultimately they retracted that, and we ended up with Chapter 1101, which is what we call our growth plan. It forced all the communities in the county to get together and talk about how they wanted to grow, where they wanted to grow, looked at their zoning, where they wanted certain uses to be. And this property remained in the same zoning this entire time. And that's why I want to talk about what it is today and what we're proposing to change it to. So today it's 360 acres. It is currently zoned for the entire north portion of it, all the way along the highway, is highway commercial. It's 180 acres of highway commercial. Below it, on the south portion, is zone R1. And this is in Oakland's jurisdiction. So we're to follow Oakland's subdivision regulations and zoning ordinances. 180 acres of commercial. 180 acres of commercial. Can you imagine what landowners could do with that? The need for that? It's a lot. A lot of landowners would look at that and see it as a piggy bank. But the Whitworth family and myself, and I'll give you a little brief background on myself. I am a land developer. Started with surveying, civil planning, and civil engineering. Didn't like the way developments were being developed back in the day in Germantown, and the way they were going into Collierville, stripping all the trees, regrading everything down to flat, not saving any of the natural features, and decided that I wanted to get into the business and see if I could do a better job. I was very fortunate because we had a set of values that we were following. And we started to run into landowners that had the same values. And what was happening is other land developers were coming to them and offering to buy their land. And that's what a traditional developer does. He tries to buy the land from a landowner as cheap as he possibly can, make as much as he possibly can, follow the minimum set of standards that exist, and pocket profits. That's not my model. I work with landowners that are in this room tonight, it's a dirty word, but I'm gonna say it, monetizing it. Each one of the generations at some point find it necessary to monetize a part of their property. But they want to do it in a manner that they're still welcome in the community, because this is where they live, it's their heritage, it's their history. And they want to do something that's beneficial to the community at the end of the day. It's in their hearts to do it that way. When they come in and sit down in my office and we start to talk about it, and they call me, I can point them out in a heartbeat. About half of them sit down and say, Doug, I understand you're real good at developing property, how much money can we make? And then that conversation doesn't go very far, because their values are not the same as ours. They are more driven by the exact amount of profit they can get out of it, and it's pretty easy to see that they really don't care what they leave behind them. But the families that we do choose to work with, so I am a tool. I work with landowners and help them develop their property in the manner that they want to develop their property. And all these landowners want to develop their property in a manner that's in the best interest of the community. Now, not everybody agrees with that at all. They really don't. But they are the owners of the land, and they are deciding, after having been there for 100 years in their family, passing down through generations, what they're wanting to do to benefit the community. I think most of you, I'm assuming, have seen a lot of developments around Hickory Withe. And those are all examples of what the families wanted their developments to look like. To preserve the wooded areas, to have in the rolling hills and preserve those, curvilinear roads, very strict restrictions that we always learn from. There's never been a development or a family that I've worked with that I've helped them improve their property that we haven't looked back and saw that there were things that we'd like to do differently. That's life. Well, Whitworth came to me 30 years ago, 3 decades ago, and started talking about what can be done with us. Before Hickory Withe became a town, during the time period that Hickory Withe was a town, after the period in which Hickory Withe lost the town, during the point in which Oakland annexed the property, at the point in which infrastructure was extended to the property, water and sewer, that gave it the ability to develop. And each time it wasn't the right time. Each time they just didn't feel like it was the right time, because they had a vision in mind, and their vision was to create a village, recreate in many ways on a larger scale what the original village of Hickory Withe was like, where they live, where their house still exists right around the corner. And so we went into a lot of long conversations about how do you build a village? What does a village look like? What are the components of it? What are the key factors that we want to hold as our value system, the principles in which this development will occur, the covenants restrictions that they'll place on it, the restrictions of uses that they'll place on it. So in the commercial areas, they have said they will not allow a liquor store. They struggled for a very long period of time as to whether or not they actually even wanted to be able to have liquor served anywhere, including in restaurants. And those of you that know Billy and Tricia understand that, you know that. Ultimately, after consulting with a lot of professionals, it came to the point that if we wanted to invite and bring in the type of restaurants, the higher quality restaurants, that was a necessity, unfortunately, and they gave them that. But they have a long list of things that, regardless of what the zoning, regardless of what the town says that they can do, they're placing a deed restriction on the property to say that you can't. Do we all understand deed restrictions? Every landowner has the ability to put a restriction on his land. When he gets ready to sell it, the person that buys it subject to that restriction, and they can't break it. And it's serious. I have seen, in my background as a surveyor, tracts of land in Memphis that the deed restriction said that it couldn't be a liquor store. And that was 80, 90 years ago. And we do a survey and it'd be a liquor store. And we make a note on it that the closing attorney needed to make reference to that. And sure enough, the person that owned it would come in and say, you no longer own this property because you violated the restrictions. He immediately reverted back to the family that had set that restriction. So it's tough. It works. It holds up in court. It's real. Those are restrictions. I won't get into all of the details, but there's an enormous amount of restrictions that are being placed on the property privately. And here's the reason why. From our perspective, and working with all the many professionals that we have pulled together on many planning projects in the past, developments that we've built in the past, and this project in particular, it is important to set the rules by which that community will be governed, self-governed. And the reason I say that is a municipality can't tell someone that they can't park an RV in their front yard, that they can't put a 20-year-old couch on their front porch with a small refrigerator full of beer because they like to drink while they watch cars go by. A municipality can't do that. But an individual who owns land can put restrictions on it to tell you that you can't do it and then enforce it. So in the past, there's been an awful lot of issues associated to HOAs because they turn them over to the neighbors, and ultimately there are some neighbors that won't tell everybody else how to live, and they use that authority of an HOA to do it. And it's sad. We've all heard the stories about people telling them that you can't have a flag hanging outside your yard. You've heard about them telling them that they couldn't paint their shutters a certain color, although it was originally approved that way. It's abuse, and it's abuse because it's a self-managed, and just like a government, there are politics that take place in HOAs as well. This HOA is not turned over to the individuals. It's to be professionally managed all the way through the period. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that HOA will function and what its purpose is. So I'm going to start to describe the plan now. And if you'll give me a minute to kind of go all the way through the plan, I think really what's important is a lot of people have fear and they have concerns and they want to know if we even know what we're doing. And I understand that. I will stay as long as necessary to answer all the questions that I possibly can. And there may be some that you come up and have some constructive criticism, and you may end up making the plan better tonight. We're open to that. But let's talk about kind of the overall plan. I'm going to do a lot of pointing. And if you can't see or you're not understanding what I'm saying, just wave and I'll back up for a minute and go through that.
Doug, can you point out the exact location of where that is in relation to the traffic light?
Yes. This is the intersection of Highway 64 and 196 where the light is. This is new 196. This is old 196 before the roads were aligned. Exxon station sits right here. And this is Highway 64. Deer Creek Crossing is right there, where we go get our pizza. As I said before, 180 acres of this property is zoned commercial. Picture my pin going all the way across the property. What we're proposing to do is to downzone, to take away 180 acres of commercial, down to 40 acres, all around the intersection. The pink buildings are highway commercial, under very specific uses. Grocery stores with a gas station, small retail adjacent to it, 4 and 1 smaller out parcels, restaurants, things of that nature. Corner is highway commercial for a drugstore. The other 2 to the west are a bank site, another restaurant site, and then the 2 buildings on the other are office buildings. All of this is what's permitted within commercial highway. So we've taken 180 acres of commercial and we pulled it down to 40 acres. Yes?
Where did you say this hospital is going to be located?
I didn't say anything about the
That's what
hospital,
I'm waiting for.
but we'll get there. And there's a rumor out that I'm developing a hospital, and that is not true, by the way. The pink areas, as I said, are the highway commercial. The purpose of that is to bring all of this available commercial down to a very small amount so that we can control the quality of the commercial that's there. We would much rather have only 4 out parcels versus 40 out parcels, so that 10 people, 10 businesses would want to be there, and we get to select the ones that are closer to our values. If it were fast food, although I'm not really wanting any fast food, I'd rather have a Chick-fil-A than a Taco Bell. And if I have one parcel to allow for that, we get to pick what is the highest quality that we think fits into the mold of a village that's being created here in Hwy. Adjacent to that, the yellow buildings is a village square. I'd love to be able to call it a town square. I'd love to be able to talk Oakland into being able to move the city hall there and call it a town square, but we can't. It's going to be a village square. And what's a village square? A village square is neighborhood commercial. It's not highway commercial. So although there's 180 acres of highway commercial, we brought it down to a small amount to control it, and then we've added to it a neighborhood commercial. But the unique thing, and one of the main factors of this type of community, which is a people-centric community, not an automobile-centric, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But the key component of having a village square is to be able to have a place off the highway that people can walk to, bicycle to, golf cart to. The trail systems that you see all throughout this property are large, wide trail systems that allow you to have golf carts, pedestrians, bicycles. That's getting us back to social interaction. We all have seen traditional developments. We've all seen suburban developments. You've all seen sidewalks that just follow along the edge of the roads and don't go anywhere. So if you want to exercise, you can have walk circles around your block all you want to, but you don't really have anywhere to go. You don't have anywhere to go to meet friends, to sit out on benches, to be able to socially interact. I could go on and on about the last 50 years of suburban development. It's all happening around us. Everyone in here has seen it. Most of you probably even lived in it at some point. For 50 years, we've been following a planning trend of suburban development. Suburban development is an automobile-centric development. The reason it started when not very many people had automobiles. Houses that were built prior to that period had one-car garage, if anything. Most of them had an alley in the back that they also had a one-car garage. Families didn't have 2, 3, 4 cars at the time. So the more we focused on automobiles, the more we focused on a development pattern. That development pattern is to put all of our commercial on the highway, and behind that commercial, build all of our homes. And we put them on a lot that gives them enough room to build a 6-foot fence in the back so that they have privacy and a playground for the kids to play on. When I grew up, all the kids played together. We played in vacant lots that were close to us. We're trying to recreate a village. Nothing that we're doing here is new. This is not new. This is not testing something. This is a development style that is all around us. Every major community in our region, larger than our region, we'll name a few. In St. Louis, St. Charles to the west is Newtown. In Nashville, I'm sure everyone's heard of West Haven. Cool Springs, Thompson Station. Alabama, at Huntsville, you have Provenance. Just outside of it in Madison, where the new Toyota Mazda plant is, you have the village of Oakland Springs. Madison, Mississippi, north of Jackson, where they can actually drink the water. They actually have Lost Rabbit. These are just a few, the ones that are well known, because they got started 6, 8, 10 years ago. So you can go and visit these. You can go see exactly what this looks like, and you'll see this style. This is not anything that's new, and all of these are what's called traditional neighborhood design. It is not suburban development. So the development regulations that we follow in all of our municipalities around here, including Oakland, including all of our municipalities, they're all regulated towards suburban type development. So the only way that we can come in and do anything different than suburban type development is to come in and ask permission for a master planned development. And that's what we've been doing. We could have easily said, let's just develop under the standard way of developing. We could have easily said, let's just put commercial along the highway and then turn right around and put all of the development behind it in the exact same style developments that you have seen all throughout the community. It could look exactly that way again. We can do that. But what we're doing is we're going to our leaders and saying, can we do it different? Can we do it better? Can we create a village? Can we break away from the mold of the traditional suburban style development? A lot of people are going to say, I don't like all the small lots. And there are a lot of small lots. There's estate lots. That's as big as any lot in Germantown, 15,000 square foot, 20,000 square foot. The majority of them are rear load lots. But we've done something completely different with it. The rear load lots that are smaller have access to their garage through an alley in the back. You would normally think that there's a road in front, but there's not. There's a park. There are 915 single-family homes in this plan. That's 352 less than if it was done traditionally like any other suburban development. And the reason why is because 100 acres has been set aside as parkland, scattered all throughout the development. When I say scattered throughout the development, I'm going to step away from the mic because I really need to point to the map for a minute. So I'll try to talk as loud as I can without sounding like I'm yelling. These are pocket parks. They're greens. This is a green space through the middle of the property that has an existing creek and beautiful trees on either side. I know that because I learned to ride a horse there on Billy's farm. All of these lots that you see facing this wide green space that's treed, they have access in the back where an alley is. And it's not an alley like you think of as a road that's built to substandards. These are public alleys. They're 26 feet wide, 2-foot concrete band on either side, and 22 foot of pavement in the middle. They're designed to look like an alley because that's where your garages are at. But the front of your home is mandated to have a front porch that covers at least 2/3 of the width of your home. And it has to be deep enough to be livable, minimum 7 to 8 feet. We're building communities like this down in Rossville now, which, by the way, that's where I moved because I was able to find a place to downsize, which was important to me at this point in life. You can go down and see what these look like. These aren't anything that are as scary as they sound, but I recognize that they really do sound scary. There are a lot of people that say, well, I don't know, the houses are very close to one another. Do I really want to be able to know my neighbor that close? Many of you may not, and it may not be for everybody. There's always going to be a need and a demand for large estate lots. We have done, I forgot how many hundreds and hundreds we've done here in Hickory Withe. We have another phase of Canterbury that's coming. Yes, sir.
What size are these houses when you're coming south there on 196? And that's one question. The second question, you talked about that.
Sir, as we mentioned, if you don't mind, let me kind of get to the end, and then we'll open up some questions. Yes, sir. And I'll answer your questions. I promise you I will. Sorry about that. I'm getting older and I lose my train of thought. This isn't for everybody, and we recognize that. We have other phases of Hickory Withe estates that are starting at 1 or 2 acre lots. We have another development that we're starting that's completely off-grid. Off-grid. It still has electric and it still has gas, but you do not have to connect to it. They're acre lots so that there are plenty of room to be able to have disassociated from your roof solar panels. You can choose to live completely off-grid if you want to, but in the event of a catastrophe, you still have electric and gas. We have a variety of things that are being built in our community. What we're asking, humbly, is to build this. It's different. It's designed for the people that do want to downsize. It's designed for the people that want to have social interaction. The sidewalks that we mentioned are 10 feet away from the front porch. Our planners, our landscape architects are saying that's a conversational distance. That means that if you're sitting on your deep, wide front porch with real furniture on it, it's not for decoration, it's for living. That someone walking down the sidewalk is just plain rude if they don't say hello. It's a conversational distance. Not everybody wants to say hello to all their neighbors. But there are a lot of people that do want to live in an environment where they have a lot of social interaction, an environment that they don't always have to get in their automobile, an environment that they can walk to their neighborhood commercial. The neighborhood commercial is where they have their favorite little pizza place. They have their sports place that they get to watch games. They have their boutiques. They have their florist. All of these are neighborhood commercial that we have pushed out to the highway. And they don't survive very well on the highway because they're meant to be in an environment that people are shopping from door to door, sitting out on the park benches in front, visiting with their family, visiting with their neighbors. There's so much that we can do in a village square, but we have to create the environment that the village square is viable, that it can be successful, that we want all of these mom and pop shops. We don't want all chains. We don't want all, I don't, you may, but I don't. I'd like to have an environment that you can live in an area, a community, a village, and pretty much walk to anything that you want to do, where you don't have to get into a car and drive there. And I'm saying this isn't new. There's examples all around us to go look at. Lots of examples to go look at. So let's get back to the village square. What makes the village square viable? First of all, we have to recognize is it important to have a village square versus having all strip commercial on the highway. Hopefully, many of you will agree that this is something that we would like to have in our community. Because it's not just for the people that live here in the community, it's for the community, the greater community, the larger community. I would hope that people are coming from Bolivar to come and partake in the environment that we're creating. But what it takes to be able to have neighborhood commercial, where mom and pop shops thrive, is density. We need people. We need people that are there all throughout the day. We need people that are working there. We need offices that are there. The village square, what we're asking for, is that the first floor is all retail or office, your State Farm office, your architect. There's so many different people that can get by in a nice, quaint, small office. There are town squares that we can go look at and see examples of this. The upstairs has a multitude of uses, just like you see in town squares. Some of them may be an office, a lawyer's office. Some of them may be lofts, they may be condos, they may be luxury condos. But what's above there is something that can be utilized. And what that does is it gets us away from a one-story building to character, where we can have two-story buildings, where we can have roof lines that change, where the fronts of the buildings don't look like it was all built at one time, but it was built over time. And it has an upstairs that you can utilize. Not everyone is gonna want that. And not every building on the down floor is gonna have an upstairs floor. Quite frankly, I don't want that. I want the character. We would like to see the character. That's what we're doing. And we have self-imposed restrictions to force us to do that. Adjacent to that, we have mixed use. And this is what scares everybody. Mixed use means that the buildings that are yellow, those are on the main drives and the main pedestrian paths that lead to the town square, to the city square. What that means is on the bottom floor are those offices. And above them are residential units. And there's so many ways that we plan to utilize this. We've all heard live-work units where the bottom floor is where your office is at, and you have a set of stairs, your garage is in the back, you go upstairs, and that's where you live. Lots of young professionals are doing that all around. They can be lofts. There are units that will be for sale. There are units that will be for rent. And because it's called multifamily, I'm afraid that so many people immediately think that it's apartment complexes that are in areas of town that's scary. Don't have an exact count because it all depends on, after we get through the market study, how many of them are live-work units units, how many of them are condos, how many of them are lofts, how many of them are rental units. So there's not a defined one at this point. Yes. But I'm gonna finish real quick, I'm sorry. I'm gonna lose track. Yes, it is still an apartment. So let's talk about an apartment. I'll ask this question and I'll ask you to answer me honestly. How many people in this room have not rented a place at some point in your life? From college, etc. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
There's 15 of us.
Okay. That is great. Why do we need a place to rent? Let me tell you that. Let me tell you that. I'll cover with that. And the reason why we do. To build a successful community and a successful village, we do need that diversity. We need a place for our young children that have graduated from college and still wants to live close to home while they're waiting on landing that job somewhere that more than likely is going to be out of state, that they're not going to invest in buying a house. We also need that place where people are moving to our community. Keep in mind, we have 27,000 new jobs 15 minutes north of us. Executives, every single one of the executives throughout Ford are wanting to transfer to this because it is the latest, greatest, state-of-the-art automobile manufacturing plant. When I moved to a new community, I wanted to rent for a short period of time until I got a feel for the neighborhoods and decided where I wanted to live. So there is a need, but let me tell you the difference. Most communities have been so afraid of that they ban them. They say we don't want them. They're so afraid that it will become what everyone's so scared of, that's on the outskirts of town, that you might not want to be in tonight. And that's not true. These are all around us. Everywhere around us. But you know what's happening because we're not? The need is there. And investors are buying all of our homes in single-family homes, in single-family subdivisions, and they're renting them out. That's not the intent of the single-family subdivisions, is to have 1 in 3 homes rented out to people that are transient, that they're only there for a year. They don't want to maintain their yard. They're worried about their studies. They're trying to figure out where they want to live. Carter, around Schilling Farms, there is an enormous amount of multifamily, if you want to think of that. Rents $2,000 to $3,000 a month. Rents today have gotten to $2 a foot. So an average rent in a decent, not a high-end, not a luxury, not an upscale, decent. And let's use the example of Arlington. 900 square foot apartment there is $2 a foot. That's $1,800 a month. So we're not talking about Section 8 housing, which is what everybody's been saying. What we're talking about is creating an environment to stop the abuse that's occurring throughout our communities. Town attorneys have been working like they're no end to figure out a way to stop it, and they haven't figured out a way yet. So as long as we don't create a place for them, it's going to continue. I don't want that to happen in this community, but I can't stop that. You cannot do that. Legally, you cannot tell someone that they can't rent their home. No, sir, it's not. And no, sir, it's not. No, sir. We're going to have to agree to disagree. So.
Tell us all the good things about it, okay? And a lot of people, you know, a lot of us out here, they're empty nesters. We go up to 70, 75.
Yes.
We got 5 acres. We want to start downsizing, okay? And your plan so far is great, okay? But I've seen it down in Harbortown, Rovertown, places like that, okay?
Yes, sir.
But you're avoiding one question. The multi-housing apartment complexes in this neighborhood.
Multi-family apartment complexes is not the same as a mixed-use development.
Don't you have apartment complexes in that?
We have rental units, yes, that are in large buildings, that have retail on the first floor. That is a completely different aspect of what everyone's afraid of. But I understand you being afraid of it, I truly do. I truly do. Yes. 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 The higher quality end, balconies on the outside, garages on the bottom floor, yes, the higher end as it relates to that, because there is a need for that. That's not true. That is not true. No, it's not a true statement. There is no federal mandate that a certain percentage of homes have to be Section 8 or low income or any other aspect. But I will tell you that there is what's called Agenda 21 that's being pushed by the UN that is similar to what you're talking about. But it's not for a development, it's for a town. Agenda 21, you can Google that, is from the UN. It's being pushed down through Congress to come to our communities. And what its purpose is to say is you need to be inclusive. You can't do all big homes here, middle homes here, and small homes here. You need to blend them. And what they do is they cut off the federal funding. It's not a development, it is a town that they're wanting to do that. I don't see that happening, but they want to do that. You can see lots of stuff on the internet as it relates to that. You really can, as it relates to that. Let me get to your hospital question, okay?
Doug, you're answering questions that we can't hear. You don't know what the question is. You are.
Oh, I'm gonna repeat the question. How does that sound?
That
Thank
would
you.
help.
Here's the question I have. Why are you specifically, to Mr. Whitworth is owning this land, coming to you for development? Look at all the vacant land between here and Somerville, Tennessee.
There
Look
is.
at all the land available there.
There
Oh my
is.
gosh. And why are we so focused on this area right here where all of us own land and we don't want this apartment complex, the Section 8, 1222, whatever you want to call it? We're not looking at that. And you got a creek right here in the middle that floods every time it rains pretty heavy, okay? So my question is, why are you doing this to us? We've been here for almost 30 years. Why?
Money.
We got our kids in college graduating here. You think they're gonna come back here? Hell no, excuse me, Josh. Okay? They're not. They're not. My kids.
Sir. Sir.
Hang on, I'm not through yet.
No.
You think you're still, I just wanna say, we are here because we don't like it. And do not want it.
Okay.
Mark my name down.
I will put that down. Oh, I've got an awful lot that we can talk as it relates to this. We can never get to the point that we can do that. So to answer the question, the gentleman in the back, yes, this is designed for a great deal of empty nesters. What the preface of this is higher quality homes, but smaller homes. That is where we're going today. There are people that are moving out of their 3,000 and 4,000 two-story homes that would prefer to have 2,200 square foot on one floor. That homes are being built that are aged in place, which is the huge thing that's being done today. And it takes this style of development to get to that point. The age in place means that they're built of a higher quality. So if you were to take a 4,000 square foot and build it the exact same way, maybe half the people in this room could afford $1 million for that. What we're doing is we're putting quality over quantity at the end of the day. It's quality over quantity. And there's examples for you to go look at. So it's not make-believe. This isn't anything that should scare the daylights out of you, but I understand that it does. It's change, and change scares us. So here's the answer to your question. Because this is the property that is best positioned and owned by a landowner that would prefer not to see it developed in a traditional way. So get this. We're here in front of you explaining how we would like to build a better development. The outcome is we don't. And it gets developed exactly like every other community and every other neighborhood in our area. So the question is, yes, it's going to be developed. A family that owns this has a need to monetize it. It is an asset for them. Every generation of their family, just like the generations of all the other families that are in this area that chose to monetize theirs, to break off and sell small portions of it. Many in this room live on those parcels. And, well, quite frankly, I developed most of those parcels. And those restrictions that we put in place, many of y'all don't like me because of those restrictions. But we stick to them. We stick to them within the law. And the law changes quite regularly. So we're constantly changing our restrictions as it relates to that. So, yes.
Yes,
We're
sir.
gonna have like 6 lanes for 64 and 4 for 196. How are you going to get the traffic?
Great question.
Great.
The question was a concern as it relates to traffic. And you're right, as development occurs, there's gonna be more traffic. There's no doubt. When we first came out here, Oakland had 600 people in it, one mom and pop shop that was adjacent to a laundromat. Hickory Withe was mostly rolling land, some in agriculture, wooded mostly. And as time has grown by, we've had to adapt to that. There are growing pains, but if anyone thinks that we're not gonna grow, I'm sorry. I wish that I had a magic wand that I could wave and say, growth isn't going to occur. If we could freeze our community the way it is right now, I'd be the guy that's waving it and freezing it. But the growth is
No,
coming.
you're not.
And either we're gonna manage it, or it's gonna be managed by us at the end of the day. We don't want to be managed by it. We want to set standards for how the community will grow. Because picture our community with 50,000 people. So let me give you an example. We have watched growth patterns and growth trends. And as they came down the popular corridor, which we're all familiar with, they reached Germantown at about 1970. Germantown's population at that point was 800 people, and they wanted no growth. 20 years later, their population was 32,000 people, and they did everything that they could to prohibit growth. I hate to say that something can't be done, but the growth will occur, and it's coming, and we need to get prepared for it, and we need to create what we want it to look like when we have a population of 50,000. So in 1990, when that growth reached the edge of Carterville, how many people remember Carterville in 1990? 1,800 people. 20 years later, it was over 42,000. They had a small boost. It was FedEx's IT center. Not very large, not a lot of employees. What we're talking about that's coming in next to us is a monster. I wish it wasn't coming. I wish we would go back to a real slow rate of growth because it's easier to control. We've done that, we've shown that, we've developed for that, we have controlled that growth. There's many ways that Hickory Withe could have turned out different, and Oakland could have turned out different. There are always going to be merchant developers, just like there are in any other profession. And yes, I understand, many people don't like me because I am a developer, because you associate me with all of those merchant developers. They're bad attorneys, they're bad doctors, they're bad all professions. I hate that. I'm stuck with that. But my point in saying that before, Mr. Homer, is the alternative is that it's going to look exactly like the rest of the subdivisions. That's the alternative, and it's the truth. And I would prefer it not to be that way. I would prefer that we try to do something that's different to create a better environment. I really would. Just a minute, Mr. Homer.
Doug, you and I have developed a friendship through the years, and I hope that will maintain itself and continue for a long time. I have a concern. Before I state that concern, I want to say, you mentioned politics a few minutes ago, and you have developed so many classy developments all over this county, and perhaps otherwise, other places also. I know I've never heard a complaint about one of your developments. You have eat lunch together after church on Sunday, and I'm gonna meet with him when he gets back in town. I talked with him, he was in East Tennessee, but I'm gonna talk with him and tell him exactly what I said tonight and my request to him. The problem I have with this is apartments coming to Fayette County. Any way we look at it, whatever we call them, it's still apartments. That is the precedence of it. That is the opening of the door, all this vacant land between here and Somerville that you mentioned. That means apartment developers from all over are gonna come in, and the county commission cannot refuse them then because the precedent has been set. My request to Mr. Whitworth when he gets back to town, I'm gonna ask him if he will eliminate the apartments over these businesses or whatever. Should be able to make plenty of money on 360 acres without having these apartments on the top. Thank you.
You know, 10 years
Let
ago.
me address that. If I can address that for just a moment. That's very possible. It is very possible. It'll affect the change because the neighborhood square will go away because we can't support that. But we can choose not to have that. We can. But let me talk about, the precedent being set. That is exactly what we're trying to do, is to set a precedent. Like you said, if a county commission comes along, or any other city, and says, but look, there's apartments that are being built down there. First of all, they'll say they're mixed use and they're part of a master plan community. And if you want to bring in a master plan community, then we can allow you to do the same thing if you're willing to meet the same standards as those. So we are setting a standard. So let me say what is the opposite of a standard. A municipality will be required by law to have zoning for apartments. And if a standard isn't met, then they have to follow the minimum standard. But I'm not saying that that's not possible, and I will obviously talk to Billy about that. We understand that it's scary. This is not something that I want. It's not something that Billy and Tricia independently want. It is what a team of professionals over a year, from planners, civil engineers, landscape architects, hydrologists to deal with the drainage. Every professional has pulled together to say, what are the components to create this type of development? Now we can get it out. It'll change the plan. Because it won't have a village square. Because you can't support the village square without the density. It's the density, the people that have the ability to walk out. Yes. What was a square like? Oh no, there are apartments and there are offices as well. It's very, very similar. Yes. But Garville Square reached the point when all the density was built around it. It's not the same. No, sir. I'm not a salesman. No, I'm not a salesman.
Okay, we're not salesmen, trees.
Oh, I'm not saying I'm taking it away. I said I will honor
It was his company.
owner's request because he is a personal friend. I have a lot of respect for him. I have a lot of respect for the things that he's done in the past. And I know him and Billy are very good friends. So you are correct. Screaming probably isn't going to get you anywhere. But people that know the family, know their heart, know their passions, will get somewhere in a conversation. 1 second. I'm sorry. I've got a few people that have had their hands up for a little bit, and I want to get some of those that haven't had a question yet. I'm sorry. Yes.
You mentioned this would be West Haven.
Yes.
I would love West Haven. West
Yes.
Haven, Berry Farms, the Livermore Lake communities, and you even said exactly like.
Mhm.
Well, West Haven, of course, I know it's Franklin and, Williams County. There's a price point of $800,000 for one bedroom.
Yes.
Start.
Yes.
Into the building. So it's
So, quarter of the town was done prematurely. It was done by review. It is a phenomenal plan, started with great architecture, value the homes were much greater than those around them. And a developer called Rusty Heineman bought the property next door to it. Rusty Heineman bribing off all of the city officials, got the property extracted from the overall plan that was to protect it. These are corrupt politicians and a merchant developer, and then he put in crap next door.
So how can we know that this isn't like that? And there are, I will say, there are no apartments in West Haven or Village Farm. There are fabulous lots.
Yes, fabulous.
And, yes, there are.
And many that are for rent there. Yes,
Yeah, there's not a.
yes, absolutely.
And there's farmers markets and they have good cookies on the lawn and it is really fabulous. To be able to generate it near. If I thought it could be that, I would say it will raise everyone's property values, it's phenomenal. When you say it's exactly that, it is not that, and it's what it is.
It's not a duplicate of it. It is the style, traditional neighborhood design. The difference, as it relates to that, is their green spaces are between the roads on either side. So what we're talking about is the differences between West Haven.
You're not allowed to have anything like this. There's gonna be nothing that's a, shape or, there's a couple.
True. Well, and they have all the little mom and pop shops that are around the little village area. That's absolutely. And it took all of the townhomes and things of that nature, which is the density that caused that to thrive. And that's what I'm saying. If we were to move this, or it all be just simply lots that are for sale, like we talked about earlier, people could still rent those. We don't like that. We would take away the town square as it relates to it, because we don't want it to not be viable. We don't want it to be empty shops. We don't want it to be the types of businesses that open in there and then close a week later and another one comes back. Yes, absolutely. Today, probably the lowest it would be 450, 475 and go up, or as far as you want to go. Yes, for the homes, Now, let me say, 450, well, it would be over $2 a foot. You can't build the quality and rent it for a low amount. And what we're doing is self-imposing what the quality is. Of the homes. Oh, homes are gonna be, from cottages for widows and widowers. Oh, average home that we're doing in most of these communities range anywhere from 21, 22. We've got, yes, well, we haven't built anything here, but other communities similar to this.
Is there a minimum square
Well,
footage?
that's what I'm saying. Yes, as it relates to each individual type of lot. So we have a multitude of types of lots. We have lots that are 42 foot wide, 46 foot wide, 50 foot wide, 54 foot wide, 60 foot wide, 70 foot wide, 80
feet. It's 800 to my house to the driveway to
The smallest cottage lot would probably be 15 to
800 feet.
1600 square foot. And if you want to see examples of those, you can. There's development just south of here that we built, and those 15 to 1600 square foot homes are going for $400,000 because it's quality. It is widows and widowers that are moving out of a house. They don't want to go to an assisted living or an independent living. They still want to have their independence. They want to live close to where their family is, but they don't want any maintenance whatsoever. The subdivision has no maintenance. In other words, all of the yards are taken care of as part of the entire project. So there is no one that doesn't mow their grass and et cetera.
And HOAs are
Oh, I didn't answer the traffic. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes. I am concerned about that as well, very much so. And meeting with TDOT and going through the traffic studies as it relates to this, here's the response. There is nothing on any plans as it relates to widening Highway 196. And the reason why, when I asked them that, is they said, well, we're decommissioning, in other words, no longer a state highway 205, and it's all because I-260 now. So most people expect that they will go west at 269 and go north. That's the scenario that they're predicting for traffic flows. As it relates to traffic flows, that's a very good question. As more developments occur, there's going to be more traffic. The southern portion of this property that extends east to west is a collector road. The collector road is to take traffic off of Highway 64. It is to funnel it in at controlled points. So it's the opposite of driveway, or access point. It is to create a parallel road that runs to it. There's another one that's planned in the major road plan to the south of us as well, that we built as part of Westbury Parkway, and by Canterbury. And that's the tie-in over to Meadman. Paul.
Quick question, Doug. You haven't talked about infrastructure. Based on that, does, I guess, one in the town of Oakland have the capacity for the infrastructure needs? Water, sewage, have you guys looked at that in it?
Yes. The infrastructure, both sewer and water, coming from Oakland. The biggest concern everybody's had is sewer, because you've all heard stories as it related to that. Quite frankly, Oakland a few years ago recognized where they were at and recognized the amount of growth that was about to increase. I think they were at 100, 120 building permits a year. Now they're at 300 building permits a year. They have had issues as it related to what is our capacity. Well, they just got through doing a comprehensive study with Blake, the new wastewater treatment plant operator. And what he has done is he's come back and taken a look at it. It took him a while, a few months, by getting on the ground to figure his way through. Harvey Ellis, the last wastewater treatment facility operator, has been working with Blake because there was a question. Well, there were a lot of things and improvements that they needed to do. Some improvements that they actually started a year ago, but because of supply chain issues, hadn't had the parts delivered until recently. So as they've done that, they've looked at all the various capacities, and they have determined that they do have the capacity for all the growth that is currently planned.
You're telling me
That's going
they're
through the
gonna pump
system.
sewer- They're gonna pump sewer from this subdivision, this complex here, all the way to Oakland, with those facilities there?
Yes.
No, you're not. You're gonna build a sewer treatment plant somewhere right here in Hickory Withe. You got it?
No, sir.
I
The
bet
force
you-
main is
I'll bet
already
you
in.
money- I'll bet you money on that. How much?
Do y'all remember a couple of years ago when they were digging all the way along the highway into, Oakland? Yeah. Okay, that is the sewer force main. That is where all the sewer will go, is in that pipe, going back east to the wastewater treatment plant in Oakland. They're in the process of, the final stages of design and engineering for the expansion of their plant. That'll take them to 3 million gallons a day. Today, they're 1.2, 1.4, and these improvements will take them to 3 million. So, does that answer your question, Paul? Are you talking about from the wastewater treatment plant or through the development?
From the wastewater.
The wastewater treatment plant treats the water.
I know it's called groundwater, so how much water can they dump into the creek? 3 million.
3 million gallons a day when they get through with the improvements. And that's regulated through the Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation. It's an NPDES permit. All of that is regulated by the EPA, in essence, through the TDEC by way of the EPA.
I have
I'm
one
sorry.
question real quick, and I'll be quiet. Listen up.
Yes, I still didn't answer your hospital.
The number of people here.
Yes.
Who is really for this project that you're trying to sell some, and who's against it? That's my question right here. And I'm sure you can see a show of hands that are for it, and a show of hands that don't want it. And right now, I would say the majority is, this needs to be, in my opinion, they are not for it. Come
So,
on, answer them, answer them.
totally understand. Totally understand.
I for one and four.
Are you nuts?
Okay, yes, sir.
I want you to know that it doesn't matter what you say here. They can put Section 8 housing in there if the federal government wants to.
I'm gonna say you're absolutely correct. The federal government can do anything that they wanna do. His statement was that regardless of what I say or anyone else says, that the federal government can require Section 8 housing in there. The federal government can do anything they wanna do. Anything they wanna do. Yes.
What is Fayette County on that map? Compared to ours? Because the sewage treatment plant, the things that I was reading, say it's gonna take $2 million in order to solve the problems that we've got. We get a temporary solution to this new thing that you just talked about. But then it's gonna take $10 million to really get it to where it needs to be. And then my second thing is with infrastructure is, what about schooling? Has there been any thought into what the effects are gonna be on the educational system of the county?
Yes.
Are there plans made ahead of this instead of after you've got packed schools after the fact?
Yes. First question is, which portion of the property is in the county and which portion of the property is in the city of Oakland? The entire property is in the city of Oakland. The city of Oakland's boundary runs, south of here, actually, all the way down to the county line, following Cypress Creek. And then it comes up and intersects with Highway 64, just east of the county line. So there's a very small sliver of land, just as you come across the county line, on the south side, that's actually in the county. The rest is in the city of Oakland. The north side of the property, the city of Oakland's boundary, kind of looks like a little jigsaw. It's following some property lines. I think the furthest that it gets is about 1,000 feet away. Schools. How I would love to have a charter school here. How we would love to support a charter school here. How we would like to get legislation to pass that we could have a charter school here. Instead, because we don't control the schools, the city of Oakland does not control the schools, the county controls the schools. I think everyone here needs to petition their county commissioners to work more towards an education. We need a new high school in the communities. I would love for us to be able to have charter schools, but legally at this point right now, the few people that have tried, I think it's an absolute nightmare as it relates to figuring out a way to get through that. I love the idea of the money following the child and them getting to go where they want to go, and we would support a Christian-based private school in a heartbeat. But we need for the state government to allow the money that they give the schools to travel with the children to those schools so that they can offer some of the better amenities, sports, clubs, things of that nature. And I would love to have that. Mr. Bunker?
Okay, a couple little things. First of all, I want to be clear about where I stand on this. Apartments are the only thing that I have a problem with. Most of the questions seem to be regarding the apartments, Section 8, whatever. If the apartments go away, I'm going to be for this because I know the quality of this man does. And I know that Billy and Trish Whitworth want to leave a legacy to their family that has been here over hundreds of years. Now, Section 8, I'm gonna have to disagree with you. The federal government cannot do anything they want to do. That is a state responsibility. The federal government can only do it if they go 180 degrees against the U.S. Constitution. This falls under the states.
Thank you, because I was not aware. My assumption is that the federal government does what they want to, as in Biden today pardoning every single person that smoked marijuana in the past that's in jail with a stroke of the pen. But Homer, help me understand that better. If that's a state, how does that work?
It goes through the government, the legislators. The only thing that the federal government can do as our Constitution, and there may be a constitutional here that can add to this, namely is print money, declare war. Those are the two basic things that I think there's 4 or 5 things that the federal government can do in accord with our Constitution. Otherwise, it falls under the states.
How can we avoid Section 8?
I don't know if you can or not, but it could be your government would be good. Only if the federal government has over us, they might say, do Section 8, and the government may not object to it, because the federal government will then cut off any money that comes from the state.
Okay. Thank you, Homer. And we've got a gentleman back here that had his hand up for a while that's probably going to know.
So, I don't know if you were involved, I live just right on the edge of Bill Dutch property. Were you involved in the development of that Renaissance property?
Which property I couldn't hear you?